Welcome to the DFS build. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to look over the 9-game DraftKings slate for Tuesday, February 27th. Yesterday could have been a lot of fun on a 4-gamer, but I played Tyrese Halliburton. How'd you do, Taylor?
Let's not talk about it.
It's onward and upward. We have double the games almost here with a 9-game slate. It could be an interesting one. This video is sponsored by DFS Hero, a really nice lineup optimizer that you can use to try to score a GPP takedown. Right now, you can get 15% off by using our link at the bottom of this video in the description. All right, so let's not waste any more time. It is a 9-game slate. Taylor, we started off with the Mavs and Cavs in Cleveland. A really nice 5-point spread and a healthy 233 total. Let's take a quick look at the Dallas side. It looks like everybody but Dante Exum is in. And on the Cleveland side, everybody's in. So unless something crazy pops up, that's where we're at with this matchup. So how are you feeling about paying out for Luka, and are there any other Mavs that stand out for you?
Didn't really look like a Luka slate. 9 games. We do have some value now that we're getting some news and stuff, so maybe I'll have more interest than I otherwise would have, but it's a bad spot. He's 12K. Cleveland's good defensively, so not really seeing it with really anyone here.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie's a pretty good price. So 8.7 Kyrie unowned. And obviously unowned Luka is always kind of interesting. He's coming at 2% ownership. He does have a 28% boom rating, but like you said, if the value starts opening up, he could garner ownership at some point. If he's going to be unowned, I will have a peppering of Luka. But I agree. I came in thinking if I'm going to pay up for a stud, it's probably going to be Giannis, and we'll get to that. But it's still Luka. So if nobody's going to be on Luka, we should have a little bit of interest of being a little bit overweight as opposed to the field. But yeah, I'm with you. Nobody really stands out for the Mavs beyond Luka, though. On the other side are the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell leads the way, pushing for 48 fantasy points. He felt like he was limited in his last game where he had the after effects of being sick. I would imagine now that he is a few days removed from that, he should be a better play. But how are you looking at Cleveland plays, and do you have any interest in Spy that?
Minimal. It's not like he's a bad price, but kind of like what I said with Luka, there's a lot of options, particularly at guard. So I have more interest in the front court. Jared Allen again for 7-3, I think looks okay. Dallas has not been good against bigs all year long. Don't really think that'll improve too much now that they have Gafford in there. So if I'm getting anyone here, it'll probably be Allen. Otherwise, Mobley looks okay, but even in a good matchup, I'm not dying to get to Cleveland.
Yeah, I never really like to go after these kind of guys when the team is at full strength. I mean, Spider's prices come down, so he's a little bit interesting, but everybody else just kind of eats into each other for me. I think Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland are all fine if you get to them. They're pretty good prices, but they just aren't standouts for me. All right, moving on to the next game. It is definitely a worse game. It's the Nets and the Magic in Orlando. The Magic are 8.5-point favorites with a really gross 213 total. On the Brooklyn side, we have Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons out. Everybody else is in. On the Orlando side, we have Paolo Banchero questionable. He missed Sunday's game, and he's been sick. And Jonathan Isaac is a disaster of a human being. He can never stay healthy. He is out. So there is potential value to be had here. Starting with the net side, who do you like?
Yeah, the Thomas thing's pretty big. Obviously, he's a big source of usage. Minutes have been there for him pretty much all year. So there should be value in the backcourt. Schroeder is the one that stands out the most for 4.8. Started last night with Simmons kind of hampered. Now that Simmons is also out, there should be plenty of minutes to go around. I think he's a good value for 4.8. Ditto for M. Johnson, same price. Look, he might be majorly chalk, though. So there's a bit of a caveat there. Brooklyn has a really low total, tough matchup against Orlando. So I get it, but not really wanting to go too far over the field on him. I think Lonnie Walker could be worth a look too. 3.9 guard forward eligibility. Like I said, a few minutes to go around in the backcourt. So he could have a bigger role tonight. And that'll probably do it. I already spent too much time on Brooklyn for a team with such a low total.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I will say Bridges is a little bit interesting. His prices come down. He's got the best projection of the Nets, and his usage is only going to go up. Really bad matchup for any Nets player here, but you have Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas out. It's a lot of scoring and playmaking that could fall to Bridges. So I do like him a little bit at 7.1. Nobody here is a priority play. Even Dennis Schroeder, if he's going to pick up ownership, I will look to other areas for value. I mean, we're going to talk about it. There are definitely other value plays on the slate, so I don't think we have to feel like we have to play Schroeder or any of these guys, but I agree the prices and rolls are pretty good. But it is Orlando on the road, so it's not very inviting. All right, the Magic on the other side, Banchero, if he's out, that's pretty big. That would make Franz Wagner one of the better plays in terms of usage. But he is 7.8K, and this game could blow out. So how are you feeling about the Magic?
Yeah, I think he's fine in that scenario. Same with Wendell Carter. Started next to Goga on Sunday in kind of a double center build type thing they had going on. So he would look good for 5-3. The minutes would be more assured if Banchero's out. If not, it's really hard to justify a lot. This team's pretty much healthy. They even have Fultz back. So it's pretty gross. But if Banchero's out, there will naturally be more appeal for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Banchero's out, you can comfortably get to Franz, and Wendell at 5-3 would look pretty good. I would not feel great about taking the Goga plunge again, even if he starts. He only played 18 minutes despite starting in the last game, so it just doesn't really feel great, especially since the Nets can run a bit smaller. Moving on, we got the Warriors and Wizards. In theory, one of the better games of the night with a 243.5 total, but the Wizards are 10.5-point home underdogs. So it does have major blowout risk, and also the Wizards are without a bunch of guys. Let me go look at this game real quick for the Golden State side. Andrew Wiggins is out. Everybody else is in. Is Chris Paul even back for this game? It looks like he is he's not on the injury report, so he should play in this game. And then for Washington, Denny Avdia is questionable. Bilal Coulibaly is out, and Landry Shamet is questionable. I think that's it for them. Yep. So we could definitely look at some value for the Wizards side, but let's start on the Warriors side. Who are you liking?
I think Thompson's the one that stands out. Wiggins being out's a big deal for his minutes. Even I think Clay would start in this game with Wiggins out, but even so, 34-minute projection looks pretty good for him. Only 5.7. If he's going to be hugely popular, then that's certainly someone you can fade since he's so boom or bust, relying on his shooting. But it's a good spot, of course, against Washington. They have 127 team total, so kind of speaks for itself. Otherwise, not a whole lot. Draymond looks okay. He kind of always looks okay. Pajemski for 6-1 should be starting too. Minutes should be secure for him, so I guess that's okay. But doesn't really look like a Curry slate either for me.
Yeah, I mean, it is the Wizards, so you can definitely talk yourself into Curry, especially if he's not going to garner ownership, which he is not currently. For me, though, the only plays that really stand out would be Pajemski and Draymond Green, probably leaning towards Green there. Kuminga's minutes have come down. Maybe Wiggins being out would make that a non-issue, and you can play him with more confidence at 6.5K. But, yeah, I'm probably looking at Dre. He is carrying a little bit of ownership, but he does have the second-best boom rating of this team today. And, yeah, if ownership's going to be on Clay, I'm out. On the other side, you have the Wizards. Lots to think about with the Wizards just because they are going to be absent of some bodies. So starting with Kyle Kuzma up top, who are you liking?
Yeah, Kuzma looks good. He's going to be the top player there kind of by a mile. I guess there is potential value, but with so many Q tags, it's kind of hard to sift through it all right now. Like Shamet would be okay if he's in. Tyus Jones, once again, 6'2", looks decent enough for him. Avdia, I guess, but I'm not too thrilled about anything here. They're all kind of looking at ownership. So it's a little rough. Kuzma is the one I'd have interest in, but I think he'll also be carrying some ownership tonight.
Yeah, Tyus Jones at 6'2" looks pretty good. Decent 20% boom rating. He's just passing all over the place, getting 10-plus assists in like 4 of his last 5 games or something like that. It's pretty ridiculous what he's doing. I would have a little bit of interest in just about any starter for the Wizards in this game, depending on how the injuries shake out. Yeah, I would even look at Corey Kispert to a certain degree at 4.5K. The Warriors are like bottom 5 in 3-pointers attempted, allowed per game. So, I mean, while their perimeter defense is actually pretty decent, that just means Kispert would have the green light for the most part here, especially with all these bodies out. So the best play is Kuz, but I do like Tyus Jones, maybe even Marvin Bagley, Jordan Poole, revenge a little bit here. And just you got to watch the injury news and see how that shakes out. But the Wizards are a little bit interesting for value. Moving on, what is probably actually the game of the night on this slate is the Hawks against the Jazz. No Trae Young, obviously, but the Jazz are in Atlanta. The Jazz are 1-point underdogs. The Jazz have no injury news to report on the Atlanta side. Onyeka Okongwu is out, and Trae Young is out, as we know. So There's a lot of usage to go around on the Hawks side, but the Jazz are pretty much the guys we thought they were. So starting with Utah, who do you like?
Yeah, I wind up getting to plenty of them seemingly every time they play, which is not fun because it's a deep rotation and it's kind of unpredictable night to night. I think Keontae George feels safe enough for 5'7", kind of locked into that point guard role these days. Don't mind that. Jordan Clarkson, we've seen flash big upside off the bench. I think he's fine, kind of in the 6K range too, actually 6K flat. So that's okay. Taylor Hendricks, maybe a value piece you can consider that shouldn't be too popular now that he's starting, but it's kind of gross. John Collins is a guy popping into plenty of my lineups right now. A nice true revenge game for him if you're into that kind of thing. I don't know. Like, I would like to not get as much as I am now, and I'm hoping that news will open up more value and lead to me getting less of them later on.
I have no issues getting a lot of Jazz in my
Like,
lineup.
it's a good game environment, but the rotation is so gross, and these guys are not guaranteed minutes that I don't really want to be so invested in them, you know?
Yeah, well, the one guy you said that I that wouldn't worry me too much is Keontae George. I mean, he's starting and getting 30-plus minutes. It seems there's no reason for them to go away from that at this point. I think everybody else is playable, but the guys that stand out would be Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George. Those guys are probably going to be – I don't want to say core play for Keontae George. Taylor Hendricks might end up being, depending on what value shakes out in this slate. But they look really, really good, and every Jazz guy is playable on this slate. On the Hawks side, no Trae Young, so DeJounte Murray obviously looks really good, even though his price has come up to 8.9K. Are you locking him in, and are there any other Hawks guys that you really like tonight?
I'm not locking him in just because I don't generally lock anyone in. But obviously he looks great, 8,900. Utah has been like the worst defense in the league in the last couple of weeks. So obviously he's a great play, 89, not too much for him. Bogdanovich always projects well. He never seems to actually pan out, it feels like, when he's chalky, when one of these guards is out. But he's, again, cheap. He's going to start. Like I said, the matchup is about as good as it gets. So I'll probably get sucked right back into that again and be disappointed. But sometimes that's the way it goes. I do think Jalen Johnson's really good, kind of as a lower-owned piece in this team. Minutes are always there for him. He's just been terrific all season. So I think that's pretty good if he's going to be contrarian compared to Murray and Bogdanovich. Maybe fading one of them and getting to Johnson instead makes sense.
I really fully agree with that. I think it's a really good call. Jalen Johnson is a weird case of maybe it's just like name branding and name recognition that like nobody wants to fully believe. He's a good player, and he's been doing well all year. So, yeah, especially with Trae out and Okongwu, like he's going to – his minutes are solidified. The usage is going to be there. So I like him a lot. Really nice leverage play on Boggy at the moment. You can also look at Sadiq Bey. But yeah, I really like DeJounte Murray. I do like Boggy against my better judgment. But Jalen Johnson at 7.9K is just a nice tournament play that is all these other Hawks are in smash spots, but he's the one that's not carrying ownership compared to DeJounte and Boggy. So yeah, I'm with you. On to the Sixers and Celtics in TD Garden. Boston comes in as 12-point favorites. They get it done at home on a regular basis. This game does have a 231.5 total, though. So if you feel Philly can keep it close, it is a little bit interesting. For the Philly side, obviously Joel Embiid remains out. They don't have any other major news to report. So you're looking at Tyrese Maxey with monster usage up top. It is a bad spot, but do you have any interest in Maxey at 8.8K? And are there any other Philly guys on your radar?
No and no.
Yeah, well, I will say this. Maxey he does project decently. His price has come down, and he's not going to be owned. So as far as a nice usage goes and an unowned GPP play, I do like him for that reason. And Tobias's price has come down to 6.9 with the usage he gets. He's okay. The problem is, as a whole, Philly guys do not project well because it's just not a good spot. So, yeah, on a bigger slate like this, I am with you. I'm probably not going to prioritize any Sixers players. Moving over to Boston, it's really the same story for me here. There are some decent plays here, but there is blowout risk, and all the Boston guys appear to be healthy. Yep, that is exactly true. They could always rest somebody randomly. They do that at times. But so far there's no news that suggests that. So Tatum looks good up top with 50 fantasy point projection. But I'm assuming you're not having much interest in Boston.
I do think Porzingis looks pretty good for 7.5. Philly without Embiid certainly doesn't have the size to match up with him or anyone really capable of chasing him around the 3-point line. So I do think he's fully capable of paying that off. Tatum and Brown, maybe like a dusting. They're both going to come in around 10%. I might be about even with that. But otherwise, a healthy team like this with a pretty sizable spread, not all that interested.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would go with Jaylen Brown or Porzingis here, maybe even Derek White. I don't really feel like paying for Tatum. Obviously, Tatum can go off on any slate. It's just like he just doesn't stand out. I mean, he's always going to project well, and he's a decent enough price. But when you have everybody there, he's just not a priority for me. Moving on, we got the Pels and Knicks at the Madison Square Garden. I'm just going to always, if I remember the stadium name, I'm just going to always say it. The Pels do have some news to monitor. Obviously, Zion Williamson is questionable because it's a day that ends in Y. CJ McCollum, I believe, missed the last game with an ankle injury. He's also questionable. Jose Alvarado is out because he likes to throw fists, and Dyson Daniels is also out. So there is obviously going to be some value here, and there's going to be a lot of usage to go around if Zion and CJ are out. So how are you looking at the Pels in either case?
Yeah, is CJ questionable?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting then because Alvarado would be the beneficiary, but he's out. So
Right.
Not really sure who's playing point guard. What?
I said nobody benefits, but actually who benefited last time was Zion, who had a double-double with assists.
Yeah, I guess Jordan Hawkins could see some run at the point, kind of by default.
You would think, but he only played 15 minutes last game. I know because I used him.
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
I think it was point Zion, and if CJ's out, that could be what we're looking at again.
Yeah, I guess so. 8,300 for point Zion. I guess it'd be fine, but it's not like the greatest matchup. This game has a pretty ugly total. Valanciunas, if Zion's out, is always someone that looks a little better. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy would also get bumps. Ingram, of course, would see more usage too. So the CJ thing is kind of tough, though. I don't really know what to do with that news if it happens. But if Zion's out, then it's kind of the standard operating procedure with Murphy, Jones, and Ingram getting bumps with maybe a little Joe Val.
Yeah, well, if Zion and CJ are out, then you can look at Hawkins. I think Hawkins took a minutes hit because you have healthy Herbert Jones and healthy Trey Murphy, and then they just let Zion run the offense, basically. Let's see, what did he do last game? He did have 11 assists. So, I mean, if CJ's out and Zion is in, he's probably a little bit too cheap for this newfound role.
Yeah, they started Jones and Murphy, so that's a huge starting lineup.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Trey Murphy and Herbert Jones at 5.5 and 5.4. Those they're totally fine. I just would need CJ to be out probably to have a lot of faith in that. Just a situation to monitor. All these Pels are going to look good for their own reasons. It just depends on who plays. But like you said, it's not like the most amazing matchup anyways, so I might play the ownership game there a little bit too. Moving over to the Knicks side, by the way, the Knicks are 3-point home dogs. That line does indicate to me that we might have a full-strength Pels team, by the way. So the total is 218.5. It's not very appealing. By the way, actually, I'm sorry. That's probably not what it is. It's because Jalen Brunson is questionable. That might be telling us Jalen Brunson might not play. Isaiah Hartenstein is also questionable. So if the Knicks are going to be a little bit undermanned here, that is probably what the point spread is telling us. But we'll see, I guess. Anyways, Brunson is questionable. How are you feeling about Brunson if he plays, and who are you liking if he's out?
I think that line's probably a hedge because if Brunson's out on a back-to-back, especially, I would think they would be bigger underdogs than that. So probably just kind of
way, right?
They're hedging their bets. Like if he's out, then they'll probably be 6 or 7 point dogs, maybe. But if he's in, maybe the line's accurate.
Right.
If he's out, of course, it's Miles McBride season. He would presumably handle most of the point guard minutes, but they do have Alec Burks now too, capable of playing some of that role. So it's not the clear-cut scenario it was. I think the last time Brunson was out, McBride played all the minutes and was just an easy smash play. 4-5, so he's enough. He'd be good again if he starts. Hartenstein, I don't really want to mess with that. Like Achua, I guess, would get a bump, play more center minutes, but I don't really want to play Jericho Sims, even if he's a starter tonight. Otherwise, like if Brunson's in, I don't really see a whole lot here. This team was necessary last night on a 4-gamer, but tonight with the low total and a 9-game slate, I'm not really interested in much else.
Well, I have mild interest even if Brunson is in, just because these guys all keep getting 34, 35 plus minutes. So even if he's in, Hart at 6.7 still playable, Achua at 7 flat still playable, even DiVincenzo at 7.3. I think they're fine plays if Brunson is in. If Brunson is out, they all look awesome to me, because we already know they're going to play 35 minutes about, and if he's out, they might push for 40 easily. Obviously, the presence of Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks does complicate matters, but whoever starts, those are the guys you're going to want to target here. Those are the guys that Tibbs is going to run into the ground. So if McBride at 4.5K does start, I will just trust Tibbs' process here and play McBride at 4.5K. And if it's Burks, same deal. So it just depends. If Brunson is in, it's kind of like and if he's out, I really, really like the Knicks. All right, next game here, we have the Spurs and Timberwolves, really big 13-point spread, Minnesota. That actually might have changed. Can you check actually if the spread might have moved? Because obviously because you said Cat is out, right?
Correct.
Let me refresh. It isn't popping on my injury report here, so let me see.
It's still 12.5 for me. Spurs are bad.
Okay, so he is out. Rudy Gobert is questionable. Yeah, indeed, they are bad. And Rudy is questionable. He was out in the last game, so pretty significant news. And on the other side for the Spurs, nothing really important to look at for the injury report there. So starting with the Spurs side, how are you feeling about Wemby, and are there any other San Antonio players that you like?
You can always make the case for him just because he's Wemby. Even in tough spots, he can kind of get there, but the minutes are still not ideal. He's still probably going to play around 30, and he's not really cheap anymore. He's 9.9 now, so we're paying full price for him in a really tough spot if Gobert's in, and they're huge underdogs. So maybe it gets a little better with Towns out, and if Gobert's out, then maybe we're kind of a little more interested in Wemby, because in that scenario, we're looking at Naz Reid, who's maybe 6'7" or 6'8" playing center. Wemby should feast in that spot theoretically, but if Gobert's in, it's hard to justify overpaying for Wemby with the Spurs being such big underdogs.
Well, I think the justification would be that Wemby's going to be unowned. And we know what Wemby's ceiling is at this point, which is very, 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 very appealing. So like you were kind of saying about Luka, going into the slate, I did not think it was going to be a Wemby slate. I said, okay, Wemby's still under 10K. That's interesting. Oh, he's facing the Timberwolves. Screw that. I don't have any interest in that. But, I mean, his projection's pretty good. He's got a 23% boom rating. The matchup isn't that bad by the numbers. I think the risk is it going to be a blowout, and is Rudy in, as you said. So based off his upside and ownership, he is interesting to me. I do have a little bit of interest. Are there any other Spurs you're liking, or are you just kind of hands off on San Antonio?
Yeah, I don't see the need to mess with that.
Yeah, I am. It's Wemby or bust for me, but it's not like other Wemby slates where I'm like, I'm all in on Wemby. I just do like him a little bit. I'd be overweight if I was mass entering here. On the other side, obviously, Anthony Edwards is going to pop probably even more than he is currently. He's coming in with a 46-point projection and a 27% boom rating. He's only 9K, so I would expect his ownership to rise. Right now it's at 6%. That doesn't seem right. How are you feeling about Ant, and are there any other Minnesota guys you're going to prioritize?
Quite a few. I think Ant's definitely a core play at that price. No Towns. He's just going to get all the usage. There's really no one else in this lineup that does a lot of shooting. Like Gobert, obviously, McDaniels, those are low usage defensive guys. Mike Conley is not a huge shooter at this point of his career. So it's going to be Edwards taking like 30 shots. If the game's not competitive, then that's a little concerning, but at least they should be on the right side of it. If they do blow him out, I assume Edwards had a big night along the way. So happy to pay for him at 9K. I think Kyle Anderson, assuming he starts at 4.7, is a core play. Conley's fine. He's never a guy I really want to go overweight on in tournaments. He just doesn't have a huge ceiling. And if he's going to be owned, then it's kind of more of a cash play than a tournament play, I think. Gobert, I think, is good if he's in. San Antonio is a great matchup, of course. Don't mind Naz Reid for 5.7, kind of as a tournament guy. The price might scare his ownership down a little bit, assuming he's coming off the bench. And I guess you can make a case for McDaniels just as a pure minutes-based cheapie at 4K. But obviously the floor on him is insanely low. He does not get usage. He
could now, though.
He could, but I mean, how much usage is he really going to get?
I don't know. If Rudy and Cat are out, It could. Some usage could
He's
flop.
like I said, he's a good play. I just would be a little more nervous about playing a guy like that, especially if he's going to wind up garnering some ownership.
Oh, I agree. All right, I'm in agreement. I don't have anything to add really to anything you said. Well played. All right, so next up we have Pistons and Bulls at the United Center. It's a 1 point.
Where's the Spurs game? Do you know?
What?
Where's that Minnesota game?
Oh,
Target Center, baby.
Hey, you got me. You got one. All right. This one is an 11-point spread, which is a little surprising. I know the Pistons are really bad, but are the Bulls that good? I don't know.
Pistons are bad, and they're on a back-to-back.
That's true. Anyways, this has a 225 total, so really not so bad, but it does have a hefty spread, so we have to worry about that. On the Detroit side of things, Cade Cunningham is probable, so never mind, and Jaden Ivey is probable, so never mind. Pistons are at full strength. On the other side, the Bulls are without Torrey Craig, which really shouldn't mean much, but it actually does solidify Ayo Dosunmu's minutes a little bit, I think. Starting with the Pistons, does anybody stand out?
Cade and Duran kind of like they always do look fine at their salaries, not like core plays, but kind of pay up to be different at those positions. I think that's fine. Otherwise, not really. They just have a deep rotation. Chicago's really slow. They have a low total. I don't think we need to mess with this unless those probable guys wind up getting downgraded.
Yeah, probably not. I will note Duran had 56 fantasy points the last time he played the Bulls. They don't really rebound that well, and he got 15 rebounds in that game. Not very shocking. But yeah, nobody really projects well. But I think as far as roles and prices go, Cade, Duran, Ivy all look just fine. I think if you get to them, they're decent tournament plays, but they're not priorities. I will say Azar Thompson, who we talked about yesterday, he did play 36 minutes. So he does have a nice role as a starter right now. He only put out 21 fantasy points, but he's not exactly cheap at 5.6K, but I do like the role at the moment. So he's on my radar, but not exactly priority. And you do have Fontecchio at 4.9 and Quentin Grimes at 4.1. He was good last night. So if you're looking for a little bit of value that won't be owned at all, those guys all are somewhat viable on this slate. All right, over to the Bull side we go. We have the big three still intact. Torrey Craig is out, like I said. I think that helps Ayo and Caruso the most, but not much movement up top. It's just Vooch, DeMar, Kobe. How are you feeling about the Bulls?
Really good, which is really scary because I never generally want to play them, but minutes have been there. I think the thing unlocking Vucevic tonight is you can play him at power forward and center, so that's certainly alluring. You can essentially play a 3 to 4 center lineup now, which is not always the case. That adds to his value a lot. At 7-8, I think he's a great play. DeRozan and Kobe White kind of always the same. They never seem to budge. They're fine. Dosunmu and Caruso, decent values. I'll probably be getting to a lot of Dosunmu. Looks like the field is there too, but I think it's fine at 5.4. His salary's not really come around to the role he's been playing. Like he's pushing 40 minutes almost every night. So fine with it. I understand it. And that pretty much wraps it up. No one else even projects for more than 16 minutes.
Yep, I really like Ayo. I don't really care about the ownership that much. The minutes are the lifeblood for NBA DFS. So I will just, unless something really, really good opens up, I would like him at 5.4 a lot. I think all the other guys here, Vooch, DeMar, Kobe, are really good plays. They're totally fine. Obviously, there's blowout risk. I think just because of ownership, I'd lean towards Kobe, but I don't think you can go wrong here. All right, last game of the night, we have the Hornets and the Bucks at Pfizer Forum. The Bucks are massive 14-point favorites. This game only has a 220 total. That's partially because the Hornets do not play as fast without LaMelo Ball, and the Bucks are kind of in transition a little bit themselves. On the Charlotte side, obviously LaMelo's out, Mark Williams is out, Seth Curry, who never matters anyways, is questionable. No, he's actually probable, so I don't know. Maybe that will matter somehow. But starting the Hornets side, who do you like?
No one really. I think Martin and Micic are okay values. Micic has been playing since he arrived from OKC, so I guess that's okay. But
take a crack at that first name.
Yeah, I did not want to do that on purpose.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'll be as popular now as it looked like he would be earlier. So perhaps he's fine as a more contrarian value if that's the case. But otherwise, pretty gross. Low total, deep lineup. Not into it.
I mean, Muchik is in my lineup as I speak. He's 4K. He's going to play. If it's a blowout, his minutes are solidified even more. He's been playing like 25 minutes a game. So, I mean, unless something else crazy opens up, he looks pretty good at 4K to me. If you think the game's going to stay close, Trey Mann at 5.6 is okay. And then obviously Bridges and Brandon Miller are getting most of the usage up top. So they would be fine. But I don't think it does. So yeah, I'm really just looking at the guy we don't want to say his name, Micha. That's pretty much it for me on the Charlotte side. All right, Bucks, last team of the night. We are just going to push a little bit over 30 minutes here. Try to wrap it up quickly. Giannis leads away, one of the best plays of the slate as far as raw points projection, and he's not even coming in with any ownership at the moment. Price probably has something to do with that. He's 11.5K. But yeah, how are you feeling about Giannis, and how are you feeling about the rest of these Bucks?
Giannis and Dame look a little too cheap each. Wouldn't play them together, obviously, but great matchup. High total. About as good of a spot as you can find for Giannis, with Charlotte not protecting the paint at all. So I do like that. I prefer the spot, obviously, to Luka's, and you get a discount on Giannis, which is intriguing. So happy to get to him wherever I can. It's just kind of hard right now with the lack of value. Maybe the Minnesota stuff opens it up a little more and makes him more accessible. I would like to get to him. If not, I do think Dame is okay. Like I said, for 86, his price has come down quite a bit from where it was earlier in the season. And he seems like he's kind of perked up a little bit of late. So perhaps he's finally finding his footing. And otherwise, there's really not much here. Yeah, that'll wrap it up.
Yeah, that's usually the case unless somebody's out. I mean, Chris Middleton is out, so you can look at guys like Jay Crowder, Pat Connaughton or something, but I don't really like that. I'm mostly Giannis or Dame, and I'm leaning Giannis. It's just this matchup works in his favor the most. The point spread is a little bit dicey, but like you said, it's just the best spot as far as studs go. And how is he not owned right now? If he's actually going to be sub 10% owned, it's just a smash for me all day long.
I think people are going to be playing like Anthony Edwards now in the mid-range. There's just kind of like upper mid-range spends that look pretty good, and then Giannis could kind of slip through the cracks. DeJounte Murray, of course.
I mean, if that does change the other way where Giannis is going to be super chalky because the value that opens up, we can start reverting back to Wemby, like we were saying, I mean, but those are the two guys as far as studs go that really speak to me as far as guys I want to build around. And honestly, I would rather that the value doesn't open up greatly and that his ownership can stay in check. So I feel really good about Giannis at that point, because in my early builds, I think I'm getting to him pretty comfortably without forcing it. All right, before we wrap it up here, let's look at the projected ownership up top. DeJounte Murray is leading with the most ownership. That's not too shocking because no Trae Young. But do you see anybody here that is going to be high owned that you are going to fade?
I don't know if all the Bulls should be chalky together, so I might pick two of the top three and kind of go underweight on the third. I'm leaning, like I said, kind of toward Vucevic and DeRozan. Kobe White might be the one that kind of falls off for me. And yeah, like Bogdanovic, I said, I'm happy to play Jalen Johnson, find the extra money for him, pay down elsewhere. If Bogdanovic is going to be really chalky, then we've seen kind of a lack of ceiling from him, so I don't mind going under on that.
Yeah, I mean, not because they're not good plays, but I might end up fading like all of the top Bulls players just because I really like DeJounte. I really like Giannis. It's going to be really hard to cram in one of those 7+K guys with all the other spots I got to fill. But AO is probably the one I would eat as far as the chalk goes. All right, so as far as boom running goes and who we're building around, we kind of touched on it quite a bit here, but one last call. Who's like the one guy with a good boom rating that you feel is going to be either in your single entry lineup or most of your lineups if you're max entering?
At this point, it'll probably be Edwards. I suspect he will gain attention and Murray might lose some, just kind of by default. They're kind of the same price. So both should be popular, though. I would lean toward Edwards, though.
All right, and for me, it's going to be DeJounte, which is funny because they're 8, 9, and 9, so it's going to be interesting which one has more ownership. But they're kind of the same plays tonight, and they both look good. And you really could make the argument that you do not need a stud on the slate. You could argue
play them both,
But that's what I'm saying. You could just eat some of this high-end chalk, and by fading these top-end studs, who knows, based off the value, that might make you different. But as things stand, because Giannis is getting overlooked, I really, really like building around Giannis, and that's going to hopefully end up making me different. All right, that does it for us. We really appreciate you watching. If we help you out in any way, please give this video a like, and also consider subscribing to our channel, the DFS Build, so you can get alerted for future videos. Thanks for watching, and good luck.